video is sponsored by Squarespace. My grow light rack has no seedlings on it. All I have is a few of these primulas that I picked up and some houseplants that desperately could use a little extra light after the winter. My seedling collection is hanging out, but it isn't sorted yet. And last night it was minus 20 Celsius out. So spring feels very far away for me right now, but I know for a fact that it's just around the corner because I just spent $300 on amazing spring bulbs at Costco yesterday. Let's do an unboxing and get excited about how many beautiful flowers I'm gonna be having in my garden come spring. I'm in Canada, so the products that I get into my local Costco are gonna be a little bit different than maybe some of the products that everyone gets down in the States. I'm in Western Canada too, so the products here are gonna be different than, you know, other parts of Canada as well. But consistently over the last handful of years, they've been getting in these, you know, spring and fall bags of, you know, kind of bulk amounts of different, you know, beautiful little things to get into the gardens. And I'm always really impressed with the pricing of everything that they get at Costco. I mean, Costco has some amazing deals sometimes. You know, sometimes stuff is just really good quality, but overall I've had really good success for these. Over the years, I have filled the farm with lilies that we picked up at Costco. Lilies were something I wasn't always super consistent at ordering on time from wholesalers, and so, you know, in the winter, early spring, when these bags would come in, it would be like, oh, okay, that's really tempting. And I gotta say, like, the prices on these are really incredible. So I paid $20 for all of these bags, but knowing the wholesale prices that I pay for some of the product, a lot of this product is really close to wholesale price per piece. The only difference is like the grade is a little bit smaller. So for example, like with the tulips, like the price is really great on the tulips, but the bulbs they'll be smaller than the size of bulbs that I get when I pay the wholesale pricing from Van Noort. But yeah, at 20 bucks a bag, these are some excellent prices. Being so cold out and so wintry here at my house, I was pretty shocked when I went into Costco and they kind of just brought in the pallets of all this spring stuff. At this point, it feels really far away, but if I'm honest, it isn't. A lot of these spring bulb items can get planted when there's still a risk of frost getting into the ground. You know, within this next week, there's a lot of seeds that I need to be starting on my grow lights. That's why I got it all set up in here. You know, the growing season is just around the corner. And so, I mean, I might have gone overboard. I ended up buying 13 bags of these bulbs, and then I also got a big huge pack of gardening gloves because Costco gardening gloves, that's the spot to get them. they have I really enjoy I think the Gardenia brand that Costco gets in. Great price. I always buy a pack or two of those every year. And so spending $300 on spring bulbs feels a little crazy. Spending $300 to buy lilies to sell for cut flowers for the farm, you know, that wasn't a big deal. That made sense as a business expense. But the other thing for context is the garden that I'm setting up right now is a garden that is empty. There isn't any lilies in it. Lilies are the type of thing that comes back year after year. You plant them once and you enjoy them over and over and over again. And so it makes sense for me to invest a little bit on that first year. You know, any money that I spend in this very beginning when I'm building the garden is money that's gonna, you know, be rewarded year after year. Obviously, I can't spend this type of money every single year. This is a crazy amount of stuff to buy. The cashier, as I was checking out, made fun of me because I literally had a cart full of these bulbs. But you know, having these, it's really going to fill in the garden, and it's also a lot of the stuff is going to be things that I'm going to be able to be cutting from, because as I said, my goal is to be able to have lots of flowers to cut from. As it is right now, I have some things to cut from planted out in the garden, but the plan needs to start to come together. So the first thing that I got is 2 bags of this Liatris. This is Blazing Star, the variety. This is your basic Liatris that you kind of see in everyone's garden. But just because it's basic doesn't mean it isn't still great. So I really love the Liatris because it's very, very easy to grow. They are like a bulb corm type plant that you put into the ground. They grow up this grassy spike, and then out of the center comes the flower stem. And these come back year after year. They're cold hardy in my area. Let's see. Saying that they're cold hardy to zone 4. In general, I try to make sure that I'm getting things at least zone 5. I prefer zone 4. For example, so I'm a zone 5 here in Kelowna, but what is happening this week makes it so that, you know, sometimes zone 5, zone 6 stuff that might make it some years won't. Right now, we have no snow on the ground, and we are getting down to -20 overnight. That amount of cold goes really deep into the ground when it's not insulated with that snow. Those lights were a little bright for the video, so I just turned them off. One of the other things that I really like about the Liatris, not only the cold hardiness, is that here in the Okanagan, it gets really hot and it's really, really dry. And the Liatris is really drought tolerant. It handles the heat really well, and it doesn't need a lot of water. Anytime I can find something that doesn't need a lot of water means that, you know, I can have luck having it in spots where maybe it's not going to have quite as much water as, you know, more concentrated areas. Like these aren't going to be going in the vegetable garden. These also can handle some partial shade, so they don't only need full sun. So like I mean 180, because each of these bags have 80 bulbs of Liatris in it. You know, that's a pretty good deal, right? 25 cents each on these. 160 of these is a lot. I think in the farm there was 200 Liatris planted. I think we bought 100 of the purple Liatris and 100 of the white Liatris, and that took up like an entire bed of flowers on the farm. So this is quite a number to be in my home garden here. But the plan is that I'm gonna kind of scatter these around what's gonna be kind of my cottage garden, cutting garden that's gonna be on the hillside. But I also have some areas that I don't really have plans for. I have a bunch of sedums that were originally purchased for the farm that didn't get planted. The plan that I had was not the plan that is being continued with, so I took some of those, and I have a hillside area where it's just blank, it's just empty, and I have no plans for it, you know, potentially for a few years. I don't want to budget a lot of money towards developing all the areas in my yard. I want to, you know, complete specific areas instead of having just bits and pieces here and there. But at 20 bucks, if I take one of these bags and I scatter something along that, you know, kind of part shade area where there's not really much going on, if I can get some flowers out of it, amazing. These look incredible in bouquets. These last quite long in the garden itself. These bloom for, you know, kind of about 3 or 4 weeks. And when they kind of die back, they still even look quite attractive. So the amount of work that it is to have something like this in the garden is very low. So I'm very happy to have lots and lots of it. Next up, I got 4 bags of lilies, because I love lilies, and you know, it's gonna be hard to not have an entire farm of them. They didn't have as many options on the lilies as I really hoped. I dug and I dug through the pallets. There was about 4 pallets. Like there was like hundreds and hundreds of these bags that were on display. I really feel like I must have come in on the first day that they had these in stock because the selection was so excellent. So I really did hunt for lilies and they didn't quite have what I was looking for. So I would have bought more. Each of these bags have 15 lilies in it. And so, you know, 4 bags, that's 60 lilies. That is quite a bit, but I do have a fairly decent yard here. And because there's no grass, right? Like the final plan for my, you know, vision of what my home garden is going to be won't have any grass in it. Well, I mean, I take that back. I'm going to be planting some decorative miscanthus grasses, but there won't be any lawn. Can't eat the grass. You can't cut and enjoy the grass inside your house in a bouquet. I don't need it. And so, you know, there's going to be a lot of space for stuff like this. Over the years, with all the different varieties that I've grown on the farm, I've become a little bit of a snob about lilies, but I've also been growing stuff on the farm that wasn't necessarily my favorites. What I was doing on the farm is I was growing mainly Asiatic lilies, which is this variety here. Asiatic lilies are unscented, and I find that they bloom about 2 weeks earlier than the Oriental lilies. They grow really similar to the Oriental lilies. They both get quite tall, multiple flowers. One of the things that's nice about the Asiatics is they have some really, really beautiful colors, really vibrant. Reds and yellows and oranges and, you know, these incredible black lilies. But for me personally, I'm really partial to the Oriental lilies. The scent on an Oriental lily is one of my favorite scents in the entire world. I absolutely love what they smell like. I love that when you bring in an Oriental lily into your house, that smell just fills the entire space. Over on the farm, my ex didn't enjoy the scent, and I have to admit, they were right. When 100 of these were blooming outside all at the same time, the smell was very, very powerful. You could smell it all over the farm. I loved it. But so even though there's some cool colors, I think the main varieties that I'm going to be going for is going to be the Orientals here at my home garden. But the kids absolutely loved this black variety. So this one here is Landini, and I've grown this before on the farm, and it does look kind of the same as what this picture looks like. Very, very stunning, very dramatic, very dark. It's shocking just how black burgundy this is in person. And often here in the Okanagan, our sun is so strong. We have like 0 humidity. So often that UV just comes down and it really bleaches colors out. But that is not the case on these. These are a very, very interesting variety. So, you know, it'll be fun to grow some of these, but let's get on to the Oriental ones. This one here is Dizzy. So it looks kind of similar to the classic like Stargazer. But if I remember, because I've grown this as well too on the farm, I think that these are a little bit of a smaller flower than the Stargazer, and the shape, like the way they sit on the plant, is a little bit more attractive. The Stargazer, named Stargazer because it actually looked up. Quite often the Oriental lilies kind of faced down, but over the years the varieties have been more upright, you know, a little bit more enjoyable, but very pretty, very classic. So I'm excited. 15 of those. And then, because the options were not that great, I got this Stargazer assorted pack. You know, and I'm hoping like that they'll have like classic Stargazer, the white. I'm pretty sure the white is named Casablanca, if I remember correctly. But this, you know, on the package they're showing this beautiful yellow, and off the top of my head I can't think of a yellow Stargazer, but you know, a nice pretty mix. In the Oriental lilies, there's some really pretty ones that have some kind of like orange peachy color streaking. So it'll be interesting to see what's gonna be in this, you know, 30 pack of lilies. You know, if whatever comes up, I'm gonna enjoy. Whatever comes up is gonna smell beautiful, look amazing, be able to be picked and brought inside. And I know that one thing people always bring up anytime the lilies get brought up as a cut flower is that they are poisonous to cats. But what I've heard is that it's actually the pollen that is really poisonous to cats. And so the trick for having them inside your house as a cut flower, which is kind of what florists do when they send them out open anyways, is you take the pollen off. As long as the pollen isn't on the flowers, it's not going to be available to drop onto the table and get ingested by your animals. So anytime that I use these in cut arrangements in my house, because Snugs likes to get his face up in the flowers. He was in this cat. He likes to sun himself when the lights are on. He was up here earlier. But yeah, I always make sure as soon as these crack open, pull those off. It keeps the flowers from getting stained because the pollen is quite yellow orange. It'll drop onto the flowers and stain the flowers. So, you know, a trick if you're trying to find a way to enjoy the scent of the oriental lilies in your house, but you're worried about your animals. Next up is something that I've never grown before, so I was really excited to get this to experiment. This is an 80 pack of freesias. And I know that these aren't winter hardy here. So because they're not winter hardy, they're the type of thing that, you know, I haven't been super interested in experimenting with on the farm. But the nice thing about, you know, having a little bit more space in my schedule, a little bit more space in my life is that I have space now to be able to experiment with some things that look absolutely beautiful, but maybe you're gonna take a little bit of fussing. So one of the things that I've done over the years with things like glads, which are also not winter hardy, you know, or other things that, you know, I like to experiment with, but I don't want to give an entire bed of space on the farm, is I've grown some things in crates. Something like this, right? I'll fill it up with soil, plant the bulbs into it, and then I can place it wherever it's convenient, you know, to have a little bit of space. But, you know, before it kind of roots in, you know, I can move it to a different spot. And when they finish, it's really easy to clean up, right? I can just pull them really easily, empty out the crate, and, you know, move on to something else in the space or something else in the crate. So I'm thinking that with the 80 bulbs, that should be about 1 crate's worth of experiment. And so then I'm gonna be able to give these a try. One thing that they had with the spring bulbs that I didn't purchase is glads. I love the glads, they're beautiful, but they don't overwinter here. And they are a lot of work to dig up out of the garden, right? To have a patch them, dig them up, and try to store them for the winter, it's a little bit of a challenge. I like them, but I don't know that they're worth the effort. But once I started doing the glads in the crates, it all of a sudden transformed the work that it was to take care of the glads. What I did on the farm a few times is I let them grow in the crates, enjoyed them, beautiful. I had them really tightly packed in together. And so the main thing that I was doing with them is I was cutting them for cut flowers, which is kind of what I want to do with the glads here, right? I can enjoy maybe a few outside, but mostly I'd like to have, you know, a few weeks of bringing in the glads to enjoy inside the house. And so then you cut the flowers out, they have the spiky greens, you let them grow for the season, you know, kind of like once they've bloomed, they're not going to be super attractive. Like these crate items are the type of thing, especially when you're growing them for cut flowers, that you can tuck into the back of your garden, right? Find a spot where there's other things that are going to be beautiful and showy, but there's still sun, right? You tuck that crate back there, you cut the things out, you leave the greenery to finish, but it doesn't have to be a focus. It doesn't have to be a centerpiece. And so then with the glads, the greens, they bring the energy into the corms, then they die back once the weather gets cold. And then what I do is I just strip off all the greens. I'd let the crate dry out so it didn't weigh as much as when it had the wet soil, but it would still have all the corms inside of it. And then I'd actually take it and I'd stick it inside of my garage. In my garage, they could overwinter fine, but I didn't have to dig them up. I didn't have to unpack them. I just had the crate. Boop, crate goes in there. come the spring, when the weather starts warming up a bit, take that crate, put it back outside. And I found it was a great way to overwinter. I actually had pretty good success. The one thing I found is, because I was using these larger corms that I was purchasing, so the flowers that came back, they weren't quite as large and as beautiful, the flowers that came back, probably because they were clustered in so tight together. So I think in the future moving forward, because ideally I'd like that crate to bloom well year after year, I just make sure to be fertilizing it, right? Making sure that there's some energy in there. When the plants are crowded in so tight, they don't necessarily get as much nutrients as they would thrive on. And with bulbs, not so much of an issue because they're using the energy that they stored the year before. But if you want to use them year after year after year, the energy in the form of fertilizer that you give them in this year is going to mean better flowers the following year. So that's my plan for glads, but I didn't buy them because I have been purchasing from LM Boyle. That's also the place that I got all my peony roots from in the fall, and I'll be purchasing from them again. They don't only sell in wholesale volumes. They also sell in small amounts, so anyone can order from them. They are Canadian, so if you're in America, it's not a great source, but they're my go-to for bulbs. So, you know, I couldn't cheat on them with Costco. Gotta keep going back. They're such a good source. And then the rest of what I bought is dahlias. And I have been smack talking dahlias for years now because on the flower farm, the dahlias just, I grew them every year. Like every year I said no more dahlias, and then I grew them every year, but they didn't make a lot of sense. They take a lot of work, they take a lot of energy, and they take a lot of space. And so to grow, I mean, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're one of the things that I love the most in my own personal cut flower arrangements. But the vase life on them, just, ideally on the farm, I was aiming for vase life that was 7 to 10 days. And the vase life on the dahlias was, was more like 5 to 7. So it just, they weren't working super well with the systems that I had set up. But now that I'm not on a farm, now that I'm not selling them, I don't need to have those same constraints. I could grow dahlias and just make myself dahlia only arrangements, because it doesn't matter, right? I can make an arrangement for myself that only lasts 3 or 4 days because they're varieties that don't have good cut flower stem life. When it's just for me, it's just for my joy. The fun is cutting, the fun is arranging, and when that arrangement dies, awesome, more fun, more fun to replace it. So my plan for my garden is that I'm gonna have about 50 dahlias. And over the years, I have narrowed in on varieties that were the most productive for stems on the farm. I was buying things like Wizard of Oz, which is a really pretty pink variety. Sylvia or Marn, beautiful orange variety that, I was like, if I only grow one, I'll grow this. There's a few other pinks, I can't remember the names off the top of my head. And I love those. But the thing that I think I'm excited about for here is instead of having like 100 of one, right? Because when I was making arrangements on the farm, I needed to be able to kind of replicate things. It made more sense to be able to have 20 bouquets that looked the same every week. And so to do that, I needed to have lots and lots of the same stems. But here in my home garden, right, when I'm just making one dahlia arrangement for my personal self every 2 weeks, I can get away with having 50 different varieties in my 50 plants. And so, I'm excited to indulge in buying individual plants. I have friends that I know will, sell me single varieties. I know that I can go and purchase all the varieties that I used to buy in bulk quantities from Van Noort at my local nursery. I know they come in individual packs there, so I'm not overly fussed, but 50 dahlias is a lot of dahlias to invest into. So I was really excited for these Costco packs because these have 7 bulbs for 20 bucks. And honestly, guys, this is like the same as wholesale price. The tubers are smaller. Like I've opened these up. The tubers that I was getting, I mean, the tubers I was getting when I was buying from Unicorn Blooms were like insane. They were gorgeous. But you know, you don't need a lot of tuber to grow a full-size plant. And so I know that like at this price, I'm gonna be really happy. So they had so many dahlia options. It was very hard to limit myself, but I got 6 packs. You know, that's gonna get me a bit of the way, like that's gonna fill up my 50 plant selection. I have a specific spot in the garden. I'm gonna have a row of them along like the top of my retaining wall. I'm very excited about these dahlias. But okay, let's go over the varieties. So this is a pastel assorted, and you know, it doesn't say what they're gonna be, but they are a decorative style, which is the shape of dahlia that I'm kind of looking for the most for doing the cut flower varieties. The decorative ones, they're smaller, they're kind of this shape, very classic. You know, and I'm assuming that most of these varieties are going to be larger varieties based on the actual named varieties that were in the pack. You can get the smaller kind of bedding dahlias that you can like purchase at like nurseries that are started and they kind of just stay short and bunching. But most of the stuff that was named in here is stuff that does work well for cutting. So I'm hopeful that these are going to work out well for me. Like this pack, which is Arabian Night in Graceland. And I've grown Arabian Night before. Arabian Night is actually one of the most productive dahlias that I've ever grown. It's a beautiful burgundy color. Great. It handled the heat really well. I was really, really impressed when I've grown Arabian Night in the past. I didn't end up investing into it because it wasn't as productive as the orange and pinks varieties, and the orange and pink varieties are a little bit easier to work with than these really dark, dramatic palettes I found. But yeah, Arabian Night, beautiful, beautiful cutting variety. And then Graceland, you know, I love those orangey colors, so I'm excited to try that one out. I don't think I've grown this before. Another selection of named varieties is these ball dahlias, and these are Jowie Arenda and Jowie Maryland. So I've grown, I don't think I've grown these specific varieties before, but I've grown other like Jowie variety dahlias, and they're excellent varieties. And then the color on these, I mean, this beautiful pink, this kind of like pink and blush and yellow tones. I think these are gonna look gorgeous in the garden, and be really fun colors to work with. This one was a leap of faith. This is unnamed. This is called Shapes and Colors Assorted Dahlia, which means this could be absolutely anything. But the picture that they have here is a beautiful collection. It has like a burgundy cactus dahlia. It has like this gorgeous pink dinner plate dahlia, which looks like a variety that I've grown before. It has some like smaller decorative varieties and ball varieties and kind of that same color palette. So if this picture is actually representative of what's in the bag, this is going to be an amazing mix for doing cut flowers. This is going to be, you know, kind of a preset color palette that's going to coordinate really nicely with the other varieties that I have. And like, honestly, I kind of like surprise bags. You know, I'm the type who's like, send me whatever, I'll work with it. You know, a dahlia is a dahlia. They're all gorgeous. So even though I've been a bit of a snob over the years, not being a snob and seeing what's going to come up is really exciting for me. And like, honestly, at this price, right? Like when your dahlias are $3 a tuber, and I'm really bad at storing dahlias over the winter. Like, I've very rarely been able to keep dahlias alive over the winter. So at this kind of price, you know, even if I buy 50 new dahlias every year, that's only $150 to be investing into dahlias. So, you know, if I grow these and there's only a handful that I'm actually interested in having year after year, I don't feel bad just letting these die off and buying new varieties to replace it in the upcoming years. Next up is, these are saying these are decorative, but I've seen these listed as dinner plate varieties. So this is Lavender Perfection and Thomas Edison, and I've grown both of these varieties before, and they're gorgeous. The Lavender Perfection I find is usually like a really good larger variety in our heat. Sometimes these large varieties, they do not like how hot our summers get, and the flowers get kind of ratty and the colors like just aren't very attractive. But I've always had a lot of luck with Lavender Perfection. So I'm really excited to have this in the mix. Plus, I mean, beautiful pink and purple. It's gonna be fun. And then finally, another random mix, extra large assorted. Yet again, I hope it's gonna look like what the picture looks like. These are saying that they're extra large, but the varieties in the picture don't look like familiar dinner plate varieties to me. These look more like, you know, there's like a water lily variety, more of like a decorative and a ball variety. So I'm hoping that when they say these are extra large, what they mean is they're quite tall plants, not that the flowers are the extra large flowers. But like I said, I'm into an adventure. I'm into a surprise bag. So I think with that, so let's see, they have 7 in each. So that is 42. With those 42 dahlias, you know, there's a lot of those pastel colors, the pinks, there's that dramatic Arabian Night and the orange. I think with that, it's gonna make a really nice blend. I think I'm gonna have the ability to put together some like really incredible cut flower dahlia arrangements, you know, throughout the summer and the fall if these plants go as planned. And then like $120 for that many dahlias is, you know, that feels like quite a deal. Here at the local nursery, to buy an individual dinner plate variety, they kind of go for $10 just for the tuber, right? So kind of having that, I can pick up 10 more varieties that I specifically want, go hunt down some Sylvia and Marns. But yeah, no. So as I said, it's freezing. It's winter. The seeds aren't started. I'm trying to be able to keep these primulas alive for the next 6 weeks until like it's not minus a million outside and I can put together some spring planters for my front door. You know, spring seems really far off, but it also feels closer than ever, having just these mountains of spring flowers like at my fingertips. I can already imagine all the blooms in the garden. I can imagine my hands back in the dirt. I can imagine the sun on my face, and it's not going to be long until we're all planting and picking these flowers, and you know, it's going to be back again. The season will be back. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. I love how easy they make it for me to build a website. But that's not all. Squarespace payments and invoicing helps me run my business in person too. Domains by Squarespace makes it the first as well as last stop in building my website. And they even have tools to help me sell content or courses, which is really valuable for a creator like me. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/youcan'teatthegrass to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.